back to the Roker Rapport Extra. It's our second edition. You might be wondering what I'm doing hosting. Funnily enough, I'm actually a little bit of a pro at this. I run my own podcast, so they've given me the task of taking on speaking to footballers, but also fans of the next team that's probably going to beat us. We're with Wolves Fancast today. We're with Rich. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Hi, mate. Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, yourself.
Yeah, I'm not too bad, actually. The whole getting beat things, I'm getting used to it a bit more. One of them things, I guess, when you've won 2 and you're in December, you kind of get used to getting beat. But, it was a little bit galling, I suppose, the way we got beat. But, yeah, I'm not too bad. In myself, I'm all right.
Well, that's good. I mean, you can't... Yeah, I mean, what is it? A year nearly since you won at Stadium of Light? I can't remember the...
We're approaching a year.
I think that's a bad anniversary, isn't it?
We're breaking records, we're good for doing that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, you're in the record books.
Doesn't matter how you get there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you were playing on Monday, you had your derby yesterday. Would you class that as a derby, Birmingham? Is that a derby?
Yeah, it is. I think in the kind of grand scheme of things, I mean, Wolves to Blues is about 20 odd miles, so it's definitely a derby. I think it goes, in Wolves fans' books, it goes sort of West Brom, then Blues/Villa. Yeah, so it's definitely up there for us.
I thought that, but you know what? Like, people outside of the region class us and Borough as a derby, and it's not. No. So it's best to ask. But you won. You won 1-0. I caught a little bit of it, not too much, if I'm honest. I'm a little bit despondent with football sort of this season. But I mean, you're top of the league. You're the opposite to us. How are things like in the Wolves camp, and how was the game yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, life's good at Wolves at the moment. Yesterday was a bit of a odd game because it was almost like we played really well first half and we're 1-0 up, and we're playing some great football, and took the foot off the pedal a bit second half. And I mean, Blues didn't have a shot on target, but it's like there's a lot of pressure and they're getting a lot of possession in our third, but they're not really creating anything, but the crowd are starting to build up. There was a lot of that without them actually having any bite to it. So yesterday, I think they just wanted to get the 3 points. They got the goal. They knew we weren't going to be threatened and kind of carried on. It's been like that for, most of the season. As soon as we've got a goal, be amazed actually thinking back if there's been a game where we probably haven't scored first and gone on to win.
It's funny, that kind of thing, though, isn't it? I mean, I'm not... I grew up with Sunderland like in this division, but at 31, we had the 10 years in the Premiership. But I remember I was looking back at the teams who came up sort of over the years, and it's always been a case of teams that can win games 1-0 that seem to get the promotion.
No, definitely. I mean, it's just about getting that consistency with the results. I think at the start of the season, I think you need to basically average about 2 points a game to get promoted. I think if you get 90 odd, I think it's 92 points, you'll probably finish first. And, I think we got about 13 games into the season. It's after we lost, I think, to Sheffield United, and we're on 26 points. And you looked at it, and it was almost like we won 5, draw, lost 1, won 5, drawn 1, lost 1. And actually go, okay, it's looking fairly steady. And I think that's the thing, we've just looked consistently good. We've had very few really poor games. That's kind of testament to the mentality at the moment. It's weird, being a Wolves fan, everyone just seems to know what their job is on the pitch. There's when they're on the ball, they don't panic, but, they're all happy to move for one another. And, a lot of fans can say, I haven't seen football like this. It's not about tiki-taka football, having, very good Portuguese guys who can dribble past players. They're all looking for one another on the ball, and yeah, it's good times at the moment.
I think with football, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's a really simple game played by idiots. Sometimes, in our case, anyway.
You're completely kind of right. Football's a very simple game at the heart of it, and but don't get me wrong, we have got a hell of a lot of quality running right through our side, but they play it as simply as you can get, and. I know, what I found anyway, watching football for the last, 15 odd years, the best teams play almost just this simple brand of football. They're not trying to do anything flashy, but they'll tear you apart by, it's a 10-yard pass that kills you. It's not trying to dribble around 5 players.
Yeah, and I think, I wanted to talk about your manager, because I'll be honest, I was sort of reading up on him and stuff like that, and being in the division, obviously Wolves and the money they've had, it does gain a little bit of headline, shall we say, but I didn't didn't know too much about the manager, Nuno, but I was reading a bit about him. But I remember last year you had sort of 4 different managers, I think, wasn't it? Has the improvement solely been down to the fact that you got a little bit more consistency with him, or has it been a bit about him and the money? Or like what's been the big difference? Because you finished 17th last year. It's quite a difference.
I think if you ask Wolves fans who our best signing has been this summer, I think most of them will say it's the manager. In terms of him changing the style of play, he's used some of the players who are already at the club and implemented them correctly. He's got rid of a load of extra, almost dead wood in the squads. Towards the end of last season, we had 6 centre midfielders, of which 2 of them were actually half decent, and he got rid of them either on loan or moved them on. And that's half the battle. He's used his connections. He's a ex-Valencia, ex-Porto manager, and he's managed to bring in Diogo Jota, who was on loan at Porto last season. He's managed to bring in Willy Bolly, who was on loan at Porto last season. Just a couple of little shrewd moves like that. We're playing a different system, but he's got everyone to kind of buy into it. And I think that's the important thing with him.
What's the system been like? Has it been more like pass and move? What's your formation that you play at the moment?
3-4-3. So basically, how Chelsea have set up the last 2 seasons with 3 at the back. We've got Connor Cody, who was a centre midfielder when he joined the club 2 seasons ago. Played second half of last season at right back and was solid, and now plays in the middle of a 3-man defence as almost a sweeper libero.
Okay.
We've got 2 wing backs who are bombing on and giving the width. You've got Ruben Neves and Sace, who provide for passing and a metronome in the middle, and then we've got Jota, Cavallero and Bonatini up front. And as I say, he's looked at the squad, he's kept the players who are useful for that system, and if they don't fit the system, so we had Dave Edwards, who'd been at the club for I think it was 9.5 years, and
scored on Saturday actually.
Yeah, he gets goals in this division.
Scored for Redden on Saturday, he did.
Yeah, he's not a technically gifted player, but speaking to him and interviewing him on podcast, he's a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
But actually, he'll get you goals. He's a very effective player, but actually, he doesn't fit into that formation. And we managed to move him on very amicably because there wasn't a role for him. As I say, he's brought in players who will fit in that system, and he's got players who he doesn't think has a chance. And he's also used youth as well when he's had to as well, which, big thing about Wolves is over the past, since ever I've been watching Wolves since the 90s, we've always had a strong youth academy and we've always encouraged managers to use it. So, we're proud of the development squad, you call it now, isn't it? It's not reserves or whatever, but I'm still keen to be bringing players through and giving them a chance when we can do, which is, again, there's a lot of perceptions about Wolves at the moment in terms of how much money we've spent, which are a bit incorrect anyway, and sort of, if we've sold our soul, but, it's almost far from it. He's just evolved us more than anything else.
Yeah, and I still think you've got it's easier just to plunge money into something. You look at Middlesbrough and they've spent a good wad of cash, and it hasn't been easy for them, so it's not just a case of, we would love a bit of money, don't get me wrong, we've got bugger all, but
don't get me wrong, it helps. I think with Wolves, last season was a bit odd because we had the new owners come in and they joined very late in terms of pre-season, and we ended up getting rid of Jack. I think it was a week before the season started, so they almost got rid of him as their first official act, but then it meant we ended up signing, I think, 11 players in the next 4 weeks in August, and it wasn't sustainable. Half the players were good, half the players were bad, and we got rid of Zenga after 3 months, and then had a caretaker manager for a month, and then had Paul Lambert, who sucked the joy out of the club. But we've implemented the loan system very well. I think actually you look at our signings from this season. Neves cost 15.5 in the end.
15, I think.
And there's been a lot of uproar about that, but you say a Sombalonga to Middlesbrough cost 15. It's that's a rant for a different day, I guess. But actually, Diogo Jota's only here on loan. Bonatini's only on loan at the moment. I think we'll probably end up signing him in January for about 5 million. But actually, the players who have come in, John Ruddy in goal, it's unfortunate to why he had to come to the club. Ryan Bennett, I think, conceded 1 goal, or no, it'd be 2 goals now in 10 games for Wolves, came on a free. Barry Douglas, Scottish wing-back, joined for about £1 million and has, I think, got the most assists in the league so far. So, there's been some quite shrewd signings there alongside some big spending names as well.
And what's Ruben Neves been like? Because obviously he's the big money signing, but when you watch Wolves, you can see his quality, but obviously it's not always one player that lifts an entire thing up, and you've already sort of alluded to that as well. What's he been like as an individual, though?
I think when I kind of read into him a bit when he joined the club, a lot of kind of Portuguese journalists were sort of quite keen to mention he's not a goal-scoring midfielder. He's not a Frank Lampard. He's very much, sits in front of the back four. He's very industrious. So I think it kind of took Wolves fans a little bit of time to realise that, he's probably not going to get more than 5 goals this season, I doubt. And he's probably not going to get more than about 10 assists. But he's the one who will set up the player for the assist. And there's been a couple of times where, he's had very few very bad games for the club. But actually, if teams press him very hard, then we're in a bit of trouble because everything kind of flows through him. And he's happy to get the ball anywhere and everywhere on the pitch, which kind of shows how kind of good a player he is. But it's when teams kind of decide to step off him and he does punish teams. Just the way he kind of carries himself on the pitch and sounds stupid, but how kind of inventive he is with his passing. I think it was against Bolton a couple of weeks ago, and the ball came to him on the left-hand side, and sort of anyone else would kind of open up their body, and he kind of just took it on the outside of the right boot first time and flicked it down the channel to set up the goal. And there's been very few players who've kind of controlled a midfield like that for Wolves I've seen. But actually, again, like with a lot of our foreign signings, and now we're into the cold, dark days of winter, he's someone who's not afraid to get stuck in as well. He missed the Blues game because he was suspended after getting 5 bookings, and he kind of gives it out just as much as he kind of takes it as well, which is almost quite pleasing to see. He's not going to get intimidated, and if the pressure's piling on, he seems like he's kind of a guy you can count on.
Yeah, and that's what you want. You want to see. I mean, in the Championship, I think you've got to have a certain level of. I mean, I don't know. I'm not massively experiencing it, but from my sort of 4 or 5 months of watching it so far, you do have to have something about yourself. You can't just come because reputations don't seem to be respected in any way, shape, size, or form. So for him to turn up and just act like he was just a player that could just stroll around the pitch, I don't think many Championship teams would allow that. They'd see that as a challenge. So it's good that he can get stuck in for you, but potentially bad for us.
You're completely right. I mean, when we got relegated in the 11-12 season to the Championship, and we had a lot of egos in our club, it's a horribly similar situation to what you're in, to be fair. It's probably even worse for Sunderland considering the run you're on. But actually, we had lots of Premier League egos still at the club, and there was a lot of division because a new manager came in after Mick McCarthy, and a few players came in, and the dressing room was essentially divided between some of the old Premier League boys and some of the new guys. And if a team doesn't fancy it, or a couple of players in your team aren't up for the fight, teams will punish you. We've lost 3 games this season, and we lost to Cardiff, who got in amongst us and will probably compete for promotion, but they're a very physically strong team, and we weren't adjusted for it at that point. We lost to Sheffield United when we were down to 10 men for about 75 minutes, and we didn't turn up. But actually, the most interesting loss we had was to QPR, who actually just worked us really hard, and they caught us on enough day, because I know what it was, but the players just weren't up for it. And it's kind of as simple as that. It doesn't matter what how much you sign players for, or what divisions they've played in. If you don't fancy in this league, anyone can beat anyone. It can be a bit of a reality shock to teams coming down from the Premier League, and it took us another relegation, scrapping pretty much all of our players and playing it half our youth team and getting back up to the Championship to realise that.
It's really interesting you should mention that, because I've literally just wrote an article yesterday that went on our website about how it's actually not the young lads or the team that's letting us down. It's actually the senior pros like Cattermole, O'Shea, McGeady, Kone. That's who are letting us down this season. And it's almost like they don't fancy it. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, referring to like Wolves' team when they came down in 2011. And obviously I know you went down 2013 to like League Two. And I don't buy into the we need to go down again. But at the same time, what you said is scarily similar to what we're experiencing right now.
The way I can't see it is the only experience Cattermole, O'Shea, Kone, for example, over the last 3 seasons is failure. They've only got a losing mentality at the moment.
Yeah.
It's all well and good having 30,000-year-old John Shea who's played in the Champions League, but he's played in a Sunderland team who's been losing religiously. And, if that's all he knows in a team, and it's pretty hard to say, well, we're just going to buy players who are winning, because that's difficult. But I think of football fans, and you can't exactly put all of a youth team in, but I'm right in thinking he's injured now, but the likes of Duncan Watmore, who, you know, in the bits I saw of him in the Premier League, he was playing for something, and that's what you want to see as a fan. You can cope with him losing week in and week out, but you can't put up with sort of half-heartedness, can you?
You can't, and it's funny you should mention it, because you've got people like O'Shea, Cattermole, and you know, we've just spoken about the players there before, and there is almost like there's a big myth at Sunderland. I don't know if it's a myth. I don't know that there's a rotten core, but there is a certain section of players that just don't sort of perform for us, and no matter which manager we bring in and whatnot, they always seem to remain the kind of the centerpiece of the club. And the ones that have done the best for us have been, you know, the younger players so far, the likes of, I mean, Honeyman's very inconsistent, but the fact that he gives you that extra sort of 25% in effort. I mean, he's come out the season with 4 goals, which is as many as McGeady's got. And truth be told, Honeyman's nowhere near the quality of McGeady in terms of genuine talent, but Honeyman fancies it. McGeady doesn't.
No, definitely. That's kind of, it's half the battle, isn't it? And, you know, the Championship's a bit of an odd league. And I think so not Huddersfield prove it. You can get promoted even if you're not a particularly amazing side if you work really hard and want it more than everyone else.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, it's you'll get found out in the Premier League, don't get me wrong, but actually to make any effort, you've got to want it, which thankfully Wolves seem up for it.
I think when it comes to your side as well, it's weird. You haven't mentioned them so far, but I like to look through sort of former players that are currently in your squad that we've got, because we've kind of gone through so many players in the past few years due to the change of managers. And I noticed Alfie N'Diaye at your club. Is he getting a game at the moment?
He played yesterday with Neves being suspended. He's almost the third choice midfielder. He's a bit of an odd one, because physically he's peak. You know, he's a walking yellow card. Probably could have got sent off yesterday, I think, after he squared up to one Blues player, and then after he got pushed away, he kind of threw one to the ground, and you think, oh God. But, you know, when he started, he's chipped in with a few crucial goals as well. But I'm not sure how a system really fits him. I think it needs to be him and Neves rather than him and Saïss, because it's a bit too defensive. But at Championship level, he is strong. His passing's not amazing, you know, considering how we're keeping the ball. But yeah, again, he's someone who's only on loan. Yeah, and he's good. But if we were to get promoted this season, I wouldn't be disappointed if we didn't sign him. Be interested to sort of see him in a different Championship side. But, you know, he's got a big engine on him, and, you know, he's one of the reasons why we did win yesterday, but he's also one of the reasons why we probably couldn't get any more, and we kind of did lose a little bit of focus second half in the possession. So yeah, he's a bit of an odd one, but, you know, he's almost brought on to see out games at the moment, which probably isn't great for him long, but, you know, he's got to prove that he's somehow better than Neves or Saïss, which is proving quite hard at the moment.
It's quite interesting as well, because Alfie was only here for about 6 months. He was brought in by O'Neill, and then when Di Canio came in, he popped him off on loan to Betis, I think. Yeah, it was Betis on loan, and then by the time Di Canio went, Poyet was in. So he actually went through a succession of like 3 managers, but he's kind of got like a weird cult hero almost sort of a status here, in the fact that he was not here long enough, but he was like certain games, like winning at Newcastle at St James's. So he's kind of got like a bit of a cult hero status. And, you know, it's funny. I mean, the one position I think we're lacking this season is definitely in the midfield. And someone like Alfie would probably be a bit of an asset for us at the moment, whether he's the man to bring in. But our midfields are that poor. We could probably do with someone who's got a bit of an engine.
No, I could see that, because, you know, he's got a lot of energy and a lot of work rate. And, you know, he's someone who kind of live and die for the cause. Probably in sort of the midfield that isn't particularly strong. You can see him, you know, I'd be interested to see him in another Championship side, because I think he's playing week in, week out. You know, especially if he's got the opportunity to get forward as well. Because he's got a couple of well-taken goals as well. And like, I thought when he first kind of came, I thought he's just all physicality. And he's in there basically to stop our fancy players from getting the shit kicked out of them. But, you know, he's got a bit about him as well, and I think you can see sort of why he's kind of got, a bit of a cult following.
You know, it's funny, we kind of touched on this a little bit before. I did kind of want to ask, 2013, he's got relegated to League One, so you know the position that we're in at the moment. You've pretty much touched on it without me even asking, but do you think from an outside perspective that Chris Coleman's the man to stop our slide. And do you have any like advice as a Wolves fan who's experienced exactly what we're experiencing at the moment and how to handle what we have on our hands at the minute?
It's difficult, really. I think I'm kind of undecided about Chris Coleman. I don't fully know how good a job he did with Wales. I mean, he did, he did bring the squad together after Gary Speed's passing, and that's kind of got to be commended. And for them to qualify for Euros back in 16, fantastic. The big question mark is how much was Gareth Bale. I think that's the part that kind of still sticks with me. He seems to have done pretty well since he's kind of joined the club. I mean, with Sunderland anyway, I think the biggest issue for yourselves is the kind of consistent turnover of managers. They kind of have a life expectancy of about 18 months tops, and it's almost like one of those where do you trust him? If you do get relegated, almost say where it's not his fault, and you can rebuild the squad, even if it's kind of almost up from the ashes, so to speak. I know when we got relegated a second time, we brought in Kenny Jackett, who was very knowledgeable about League One, and it's his bread and butter. He pretty much just bombed out, it was pretty much everyone who played in the Premier League. I think he kept Doyle around because we didn't have a replacement, but as soon as we did, he put him on the transfer list to get him off the wage bill. He kind of very much made it a non-ego football club. Even hard-working players who I'd have liked to see stay, someone like Stephen Ward, who is still playing Premier League football, bear in mind, 4 years on, he was put on the transfer list. And, that's a big statement to make. I think once we got relegated a second time as well, and this probably goes a little bit underappreciated as well, is the club did a lot to work with the fans in terms of sort of making sure, because you get relegated twice, and it's, you kind of alluded to, it's hard to keep in love with a team like that. It's soul destroying. You've gone in 2 seasons, you've gone from playing at Stamford Bridge to Gillingham away, and it is tough, but actually, the club did quite a lot in terms of sort of engaging with fans to build a relationship back up with them, because they say they've got more time. Actually, they're in a more, the spotlight's not on them as much. And from our own personal experience, it meant that the club have engaged more with things like our podcast. Not to say that they'll have to do that with yours, but, it's simple things like that. And, and as I said, we also sort of played quite a lot of our youth players. I think in sort of those first couple of games back, we promoted Danny Bart, who was a local lad, as captain. We had Carl Akimi and local lad. We had Jack Price. Lee Evans joined 6 months before, but he was only 18. David Davis was still young. There was a lot of young talent that was kicking around the club. And I think, how I kind of appreciate anyway, most good development squad players can play at League One level. So actually, if you've got young guys coming through the squad, was it Honeyglen? No.
Honeyman's there.
And what more of he's fit, and a couple of other players like that. It's not that hard a division, I didn't find. Even players who have got some fairly big fundamental flaws seem to have just coasted through it, alongside a few of older experienced heads as well. So someone like Sam Ricketts, who was a good championship player. I think he joined us when he was 32. He played a couple of seasons of Premier League as well. He played under Jackett about a decade before, came into the club as vice-captain. And, it was almost like they had a new older head to look at. So instead of, John O'Shea was Roger Johnson, if you know what I mean. Like, he was like a bit, a massively divisive figure. He didn't leave the club for about 6 months, but he was training by himself, and they got in Sam Ricketts. He was coming towards his tail end of his career, and he was fantastic for us in League One. Proper old-fashioned defender who'd play anywhere across the back four. As soon as we kind of got to the Championship, though, his legs weren't there. But that was fine, and the club were able to sort of move him on about a year later. Yeah,
and I mean, it's funny you should mention that. I kind of almost feel, I don't want to go down. I definitely don't. And I kind of weirdly think we won't, but I think, maybe rebuilding in this league, getting through this season, maybe just keeping our heads above water with Coleman, and then sort of getting rid of the O'Sheas and the Catamoles and the Billy Joneses of our side, and bringing in a few of the younger boys, and maybe getting some people that Coleman knows from maybe the Wales setup or maybe his previous clubs to kind of like be the experienced head, as you say, in the side that isn't the experienced head that's been with us for 5-6 seasons and consistently lost. At the core of our squad is like a bunch of losers. It feels horrible to say, but it's true.
Yeah. the thing is harsh, but probably fairly fair. So you can move them on. It frees up wages, because I can't imagine sort of players like Casemiro and Shea being on small amounts of money. But it creates opportunities for either other guys in the squad to step up or new guys to come in and sort of recreate something. Because, it's easy to forget how big a club Sunderland are. Got massive infrastructure, massive stadium, massive supporter base. And, there's no reason why a stadium can't sort of be full and Sunderland can't be challenging league. Because as I say, anyone can get promoted. Huddersfield has proved that. You've just got to want it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel from the outside, and looking in at the squad we've got, we should be challenging more, but I think mentality is a big thing. I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head with a lot of stuff, probably because you've been there before. Yeah. You've probably experienced the same sort of thing. But obviously, I did want to get your thoughts on the match and possibly prediction. I mean, I think we know Wolves are going to win. But anyone you're worried about in our team?
It's interesting because we've been linked with a loan move for Lewis Graben in the transfer window.
It's all right.
I think he's someone who a few years ago, when he was at Bournemouth, did really well in this division. And when I think he was at Norwich, he did quite well. He seems to have he's kind of joined the line of sort of championship, run-of-the-mill championship strikers. But, I don't know really with Sunderland. I think there's still some half-decent names in there who can probably sort of turn on a display if they choose to, I guess. With Wolves, I don't think it's a question... Well, I'd like to think it's not a question of if we win, but say how kind of many. But I think we've won 6 on the bounce now, and the run's got to end at some point. And in a way, I almost fancy Chris Coleman to do a bit of a job on us. Just in terms of sort of how he kind of went about with Wales, in terms of effectively playing like a 5-3-1-1 or something. I can see him trying to do something similar on Saturday and really kind of working Wolves hard and trying to get stuff on the counter attack. So I've got a feeling it's not going to sort of be a sort of a 5-1 thrashing like it was against Bolton, who were poor. And I think that with Wolves, it's almost felt like, and I think if we score inside the first 15 minutes, it's going to be a 2-0, 3-0 win. It's when the game kind of gets going on and on and on. And thankfully, in this run of 6 games, I don't have it in front of me, but I'd be amazed if we didn't score inside the first 15, 20 minutes on any of them. After the first 5 minutes, we're just pegging teams back. And if Sunderland are able to withhold that, which I'm not sure they will be, but, personally, I think it's probably going to be a 2-0 Wolves win.
I think it's all about confidence for us at the minute, and I think most of the fan base has wrote Wolves off. Wolves away is a defeat. I'd like to think we could do something. We need to start picking up points from somewhere, but it shows you how demoralised we are that we'd almost take a non-heavy defeat, and get towards the more winnable games, I think. But, you never know. We're actually better away from home, strangely enough, and have been for quite some time. So anyone can beat anyone in this league, and that's kind of almost the beauty of it. And I think there's going to be one result where we turn someone over. I don't think it'll be Saturday. I really don't, but I'd like to think so. And you never know with football, do you?
This division doesn't have lots and lots of quality in it, but it almost makes it a bit more entertaining, a bit more exciting. It's hard for me to kind of look at it from a neutral point of view. But say QPR have beaten Wolves and Sheffield United this season, who were second, first and third, and they're I think about 17th or something. The league can kind of throw it up. It makes it more of an interesting league, but sometimes your one gets beaten, and that time it sucks a bit. Yeah,
well, we've been used to it this season as well, but thanks for coming on, Rich. Been good having a wee chat. It feels like there might be a bit of light at the end of the tunnel after having a chat with you, which I was hoping you were going to say and advise us on how you get out of this shitstorm, and hopefully in a couple of years' time we're sitting in the position you're in, but you never know with Sunderland.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thanks very much, Rich. That's episode 2 done. We might probably catch up with you later on at the end of the season, and hopefully we're talking about Sunderland not being in the relegation zone, and possibly you'll probably be champions by that point, but you never know. Yeah, never know. But sounds good to me, mate. Look after yourself, Rich. Thanks for coming on. Oh, good. So join us next week when we'll be talking to a Fulham fan. Got the Fulham game at home, another home game, which none of us really look forward to, but hopefully we're chatting about a win, or at least a positive performance against Wolves. See you then.